Hello and welcome to Super Boothers. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Ismail, and today we are joined by Rob Savickis, best known for running the Photo Booth Expo, the main event of the year. Rob, welcome to the
Woohoo!
show.
How's everybody doing? Great to be here.
Thank you so much for being with us. We have so much to talk about. We're so excited.
I'm looking forward to another great year at Photo Booth Expo.
Yeah, so Rob, for people who are listening that may not know much about you, could you just give us a brief overview of your career, your background, and how you got involved with setting up the expo?
Okay. Well, basically, I was exhibiting at different trade shows for the better part of 25 or so years. I used to sell a lot of stuff to the DJ world. I had a store in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada for a number of years. And I probably had attended 85% of all the DJ shows that ever happened in North America between about 1990 and now. And going back a few years, going back to 2013, 2014, I had transitioned into photo booths. I was actually the operations. I had my own DJ service for a number of years. I was a multi-op. And anyway, at one point I was operations manager for another DJ service, and they happened to have photo booths. So that was in 2011. I got involved with that. By 2013, they're basically telling me, wow, everybody and their uncle is getting into this business. And it used to be great back in, 2009, 2010, and it's getting saturated. And there's 3 times as many people in the business as there were 3 years ago. And I had one of my main suppliers was basically saying, somebody should really put on somebody should put on a photo booth expo. They weren't interested in doing it, but they were saying, Rob, you should do it. They were pretty much daring me to do it. So I did my research, and I basically looked around, and there was no photo booth expo that was catered specifically to the photo booth business. There's a million photography shows out there. And a lot of the DJ shows, photography shows, amusement park shows, things like that, they had a lot of photo booth exhibitors in them. But I thought it would be worth taking a chance to see if the Photo Booth Expo might work. I figured I'd done shows all across North America, and my experience was that the best show every year pretty much was in Las Vegas. They tried it in others.
Absolutely.
They tried running shows in Chicago, Cleveland, Atlanta. You pretty much in San Francisco, you name it. I've probably done a show there, but for some reason you mentioned Vegas and everybody wants to be there. So it's kind of, even though I live 40 hours away by car or 4 hours away by plane, to me it was basically a no-brainer that it had to be in Las Vegas. So I started.
Whenever I did photography way back when, I used to go to WPPI religiously. Every year I would go. And I remember one of the first years that I went, there was maybe 1 or 2 photo booth people, and that was about all the industry was. And I mean, you would purchase a photo booth, and it was, I would almost say, competitive of what it is right now. But what you would do back then is, I remember I was charging $2,000 for my first rental. Now, we're lucky if we can get, half of that.
Yeah, it's just like any business. I mean, you find a good business, and that's the way a free economy works. Is that other people get into it, it becomes a lot more competitive. And generally, as things shake out, the strong gets stronger, the weak fall on the wayside. It's unfortunately that's just the way it is. I mean, it's a free market economy. Photo booths were a fantastic idea. I don't think they're a fad. Some people say it is, but I think it's more based on technological advancements and actually being able to do things with a photo booth that you couldn't do 20 years ago, such as mostly the cameras and the printers, and being able to compact it in such a way that it's portable. Yeah, and that's one of the big. You go to any of the Facebook pages or anything like that. That's a big discussion that the prices are going down. But the thing is to prepare yourself, and basically, unfortunately, the 80% of the business goes to 20% of the people, no matter what business you're in, and you want to be in that 20% that gets the 80% of the business. And the people that have a really good, strong business model are going to succeed, and unfortunately, the ones that don't won't. But that's not unique to photo booths. That's the same in any business.
Yeah, I agree. And that 80-20 rule is known as the Pareto principle for people listening. It applies to lots of other things, not just business. So Rob, you mentioned earlier that you did some research when you were deciding whether to do the Photo Booth Expo. I'm curious, did you look at metrics and data, or was it more of a gut feel based on, seeing more and more booths at the other events that you were going to? Because it's kind of hard to find reliable data on the industry. I'm curious if you had anything like that.
It's next to impossible to find reliable data. I mean,
And why is that?
A lot of it is part-time. I'm sure if you really studied some of the government stats, you could get some data in there. And I've had people that have wanted to do surveys, and then I haven't, they started it, and then I haven't heard too much from them after that. To be honest, it was somewhat of a gut feel. I did the math on it, and I figured if I ran this thing and if absolutely nobody showed up, I would lose about $20,000. So
that's a hefty amount.
It was a gut feel that I thought it was the right time, and it worked out. So it's been the opposite. The show's actually gone way beyond what I expected it would be. So,
how many photo booth companies do you think operate in the United States? That's a number I've been trying to get a hold of, and metrics do not exist for this industry.
No, the closest, if I had to guesstimate on how many actual photo booths are out there, okay, I would have to say probably somewhere between 30 and 40,000. But, how many of those are...
That's photo booths, not companies.
No, that's photo booths.
Like actual units, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, now at the peak, and partially that's based on, I did some research on the industry itself back when photo booths peaked in the Kresge's and the Woolcos, or the Woolworths and all those types of things. There were about 60,000 out there, so I'm probably being conservative. And then it dropped down to about 10,000. Now that's talking sort of permanent. That was like in the old days when you had like the chemical booths and all of that. And nowadays it's, even the old chemical booths are all digital now. And actually, a few of the companies at the Photo Booth Expo specialize in the permanent install market as well. So, I mean, that's growing. I mean, there's a big market out there now, which was never there before, which was making photo booths to post to Facebook, basically to, rather than charging somebody $5 and 4 minutes later they get their picture, it's basically free and they get your email address. So it's...
I would have clients kill me if they got their photos in 4 minutes now. I mean, it's just so shocking how much technology has progressed.
Well, I mean, part of that whole thing is there is actually a market out there, and I've talked to a number of people who specialize in doing the old style chemical booths, the ones where it took 4 minutes, and it was all, I don't even understand a lot of the mechanics behind it because I've never seen the inner workings. I've seen the chemical photo booths out there, but I've never seen the inner workings of them and exactly, what kind of chemicals you need. But there's people that go out there and literally, instead of all these newfangled booths that are out there, they go out there with the old style, and people love that, especially for retro types of events and whatever. But it's been quite, like I said, it's once the printing got that, yeah, you could now get your print in, 10 to 15 seconds versus 4 minutes. Although sometimes that's a bit exaggerated because it's 10 to 15 seconds to make the print, but sometimes the software takes a little bit as well, right? But
I'm sure a lot of people are grateful that you took that initial risk of risking tens of thousands of dollars to get the expo together. I know a lot of people benefit from it now, both the vendors and the attendees. I know Ryan and I are happy that the expo's out. That's where we met. A lot of the listeners know the story behind that. Yeah,
no problem. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, and I'm actually really curious about to take that larger risk in that very, the first expo. How did you go about finding vendors and attendees? I'm sure there were thousands of booths out there, but for you to go out and market it and get people to go and fly to the show, how'd you find those people, and how do you find them now?
Well,
is there any source that you go to?
Here's the funny part. I basically, before I started it, I spent about a month and I basically wrote down 300 companies that I thought should be approached. And they were ones that, I shouldn't say this, but I saw at other shows or I'd heard of, or, were on the Facebook pages. I had like a lot of different sources for that, but I basically, I wrote down a number of companies and I basically, prioritized them in terms of who should I contact first. I made some phone calls and like the nice thing, I've never had a business take off. I've done a lot of businesses. I've never had a business take off as easily as this one did. I did cold calling for precisely, I would say, 2 or 3 days. Okay. And I mean, I've sold.
That's literally been our same response with this. Like, everyone is just so receptive to it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sometimes it doesn't have to be hard. Sometimes things just work. It's just such a right
going
fit
back
that
a
things
number
just
of
take off
years
on their
ago,
own.
I tried selling insurance and that didn't work out too well. Okay. And there's some things that people don't want, but no, the support I got, I called some of the big players in the business, and yeah, they were pretty much on board from day one. The first show actually the show was announced on December the 22nd, 2014. And it was I believe it was the 13th, 14th, and 15th of April. So I didn't have a lot of time to I didn't have a lot of time to basically get things going. And I started originally with a room that basically had 100 booths in it, and a seminar room that had 100 people capacity. And basically we had sold by the middle of February. We had already sold, I think, 300 or 400 tickets. So I ended up grabbing a second room and expanding the seating to 600 people from 100. We ended up adding another 40 booths into the show. So the first show was 140 booths, and this show, it's probably going to be 400. If it's not 400, it'll be just shy of 400 booths. So
That's amazing growth. What are some of the new things that we can expect this year versus last year?
Oh, well, we had some new, I think robotics are playing a lot bigger role. There was a brand new photo booth last year called OCCO or OCO.
Sure, it was the photo booth that followed you.
And yeah, it literally, that was a big technology. I mean, you're getting, people are getting into the whole 3D thing. There's a lot of spin-offs and all of that as well. And some of them, like I said, some of them will take off, some of them won't. But it's exciting to see. And there's a lot more now that the first year, nobody really knew about the show. They weren't too sure about it. It was sort of a wait and see. The big players, yeah, we've needed a Photo Booth Expo for years, so they were on board. But every year, it's when the word is out there that it's a big, huge show, more and more people want to take part. So
it's like a must-attend event now. So it's definitely grown to that level over the last couple of years.
The nice thing this year, we actually did get people from 45 different countries coming down, but hopefully we'll get even more this year because. And it sort of worked out by coincidence. It wasn't some kind of a planned out thing, at least not on my part. But this year, 3 major shows are going to be happening at the same time in Las Vegas, which is Photo Booth Expo, Mobile Beat, which is the big DJ show every year, and the one that I'd been exhibiting at for 20 years or so before I started Photo Booth Expo. And WPPI that you were talking about, that's actually going to be at the convention center right next door on the same days. So
what's going on in November?
Now that's the Photo Booth Cruise.
Gotcha. And then what is, I guess, your involvement with that?
That's actually, so right now it's sort of a co-production between Mobile Beat and Photo Booth Expo. Neither of us are basically making money off of it. It's more just an opportunity for photo booth people to network, and there will be some education every day, but there's also going to be a lot of fun and all of that. So I was basically invited when I originally, like I said, I had been in I'd been an exhibitor at the Mobile Beat shows for 20 years. So I've known Ryan Berger, who runs that show, since well, actually he bought the show in 2006, and Bob Lindquist, who actually along with Mike Bonacorso started Mobile Beat, is actually now my director of press and communications, and he does the website and everything. So I've got a lot of connections with the people at Mobile Beat. And then Ryan decided to buy the show in 2006. Or I guess they were selling it. He put in an offer, and his won. And he's done a very good job for the last 10 years running that. I've known Ryan since before his Mobile Beat days. He used to run something called ProDJ.com, and he used to publish some books and all of that. And him and I had been, before he ran Mobile Beat, him and I had been neighbors at a couple of other trade shows back in the early 90s. So I've known him, I don't know, 1990, 91. So, quarter of a century anyway. And he was a big help in basically, I'd expressed some, I told him I had an interest in starting this show. And at that point, there was actually talk of partnerships between different people. At the end of the day, everybody that basically it ended up that the name on the company was just me. Okay. But Ryan was a huge, he was basically a big help in getting the show started, getting me set up with, Las Vegas Expo, giving me some hints and tips and things like that. And, so like I said, we've been in contact basically, we've been in contact for 25 years, but, and on the trade show side, and we were just talking, he's been running the Mobile Beat, cruise for a few years. And, he said, well, why don't we make it a Mobile Beat and Photo Booth Expo cruise this year? And I said, hey, sounds good to me. So, and I've never been on a cruise before myself. So I'm actually, that was one of the other reasons I'm doing that.
I just went on my first one, and it was freaking amazing.
There you go. There you go.
You're absolutely gonna love it.
Oh, and I've wanted to do it. I've been to, I think, 46 of the 50 U.S. states. I just went to Australia this January. I was actually in Europe for a while. I was actually thinking about, and I still might, I don't know. I was actually thinking about trying to run a Photo Booth Expo in Europe. So I was kind of scoping out some sites and all that. But so I've covered a good part of the world now, but I've never actually been on a cruise. So when Ryan mentioned, well, why don't we co-brand this thing or whatever, I said, hey, I'm in.
So, Rob, I have a question about you have a lot of longevity in the industry, even before you did the expo, all the shows that you attended. So now, after doing it for a few years and seeing the growth of the industry, from your perspective at the high level, what are the trends that you see that have changed, that are going forward, and what advice would you have for people in the industry to grow their business?
Biggest piece of advice is basically hone your marketing, because it doesn't make any difference how good you are if you can't market yourself properly, then you're not going to get the business. And the other thing is basically to not take any shortcuts. It's like to offer the best possible service you can. Try to constantly improve what you're doing. If you stay on top of your game, you'll get every business is dependent on repeat customers. And if you stay on top of your game, then, you'll probably do fine. In terms of a trend, honestly, if I knew what the next big thing was going to be in the photo booth business, I would invest in it heavily, but I don't know what it is. So I think I'll just keep on doing the Photo Booth Expo for a while.
Yeah, stick to your strengths, I guess. I had one other final thing that I was curious about, is that I see you do surveys after the expo to all the attendees to try to, I guess, get feedback. I'm curious how that works for you. What do you learn from the attendees? And it's kind of a general business practice that people can apply to their rental business too, is getting feedback from your customers. So I'm curious to hear a little bit about that.
Like I said, every business is dependent on having happy customers, or if they're not happy, then finding out why they weren't and seeing what you can do to fix things. Every once in a while, you're given a conflicting set of parameters. For example, I absolutely loved South Point, and basically people said we wanted to be closer to the strip, so we moved it closer to the strip. then some other people said, yeah, but we like, so it's, unfortunately you can't please everybody, but you do your best to please as many people as you can. I'm going to let your listeners in on a little secret that basically I've only told to, internal people at the,
we have an exclusive.
I've only told so far internal people at the Photo Booth Expo and of course, Westgate and, people I have to work with, but I'm not even going to be announcing this for another 2 to 3 weeks. And there is a chance that small things may change, but, basically we are expanding the show again, based on the survey. One of the big things I got out of the survey was that people didn't want to have to choose between seminars. That they basically wanted they wanted the seminars to be an hour instead of 45 minutes. I don't even necessarily agree with that. Personally, I wanted to get the program going as quick as possible, but my director of education wanted it to be an hour so that people could have a 15-minute break in between. And a lot of people told me that. So that was one of the things I got out of the surveys. The other thing was that we'll be expanding the show most likely. Like I said, I'm not making any promise. I'm giving you a little secret of
a contingent exclusive.
98% the show is going to be
a little sneak peek.
Instead of being March the 12th to the 14th, it's going to be March the 11th to the 14th. So we're going to add the Sunday on top. And what's basically going to happen is rather than on the Monday, we basically had 2 streams of seminars running from about 12 till 6. So I'm going to take one of the streams and we're going to move it to the Sunday so that people will actually be able to catch seminars on Sunday and on Monday and then Tuesday and Wednesday mornings as well. So it'll be a little bit less intense, a little bit more spread out. But one of the things that we're going to be doing is adding about 65 booths as well. So we're going to basically have, instead of having, I think last year, we started off with 340, with the different expansions, we went to 344 booths. And I think at the end of the day, we ended up with about 330. But we're actually going to be up to 400 booths this year. And the other thing is that we're going to have a preview night, because WPPI is literally next door at the convention center. So if people want to go to WPPI, they can go there from 10 till 4. We're probably going to be adding a preview night on Monday night from 5 to 8 p.m. So the exhibit floor, rather than, it's been open Tuesday and Wednesday last 3 years. So this year, for the first time, it'll be open 3 days. Once again, this is not 100% final. When it's 100% final, I'll announce it to the Photo Booth Expo group and to the exhibitors and all that. But most likely, the exhibits are going to be open from 5 to 8 p.m. on Monday, and then from 11 to 5 on Tuesday, and 11 to 3 on Wednesday. And one of the other, this was less from the survey I sent out to the attendees, but the exhibitors basically thought that the Tuesday was a very long day, that they were on the floor from 12 till 7, and I ended up kicking the last person out just before 9 o'clock. So it was a very long day. So we're basically going to have more days, but shorter days. And then that way people want to do things in Vegas as well, then they got more time to do that.
Great. Rob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been fun. Oh, and yeah, I'm looking forward. I understand you guys are actually going to have a booth on the show. So I'm really looking forward to seeing your podcasts and everything, and maybe we can even do a live remote right from the show.
Absolutely. We already have amazing plans, and that's going to happen.
Okay. Well, thanks again for having me on your show.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much to Rob Savickis for joining us. Please go to photoboothexpo.com. We have a promo code for you. It is located in our show notes. There's a promo code for the Key Pass and then an Exhibits Only Pass. Please go to our website and shop Super Boothers. All of our proceeds go to help keep our little show running. We have t-shirts, tanks, totes, mugs. Ladies, we didn't forget about you. We have Ladies Fit Tees as well. We want to hear your questions. Please submit them online at superboothers.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.